So do all programming interviews require a coding test? Let's talk about that in today's video. Welcome back, my name is Tim Buchalka with another programming tip of the day. The question again was, do all programming interviews have coding tests? Well, the short answer is no, they don't. I've actually been in quite a few interviews where a coding test wasn't even discussed, and for me it was relatively rare to actually have a coding test. But it does depend on where you're going for the job. If you're going to apply for a job with Microsoft, with Google, or someone of that nature, Apple, then almost certainly you will have a coding test because they're looking for the best of the best. And they've got a streamlined process which generally involves quite a few things, multiple interviews and coding tests as well. So to get in, you'll need to understand and pass those coding tests to have any chance, or basically to have any chance of working for those companies. But in general, depending who you're actually going to work with, you may not get a coding test at all. So what they might do is try and find some way to figure out if you've got the experience. So if you've already got some programming experience, it can be relatively easy for them to just ask you a few general questions without you needing to go through a full formal coding test. Relatively rare in my experience for general companies for you to have to get on the whiteboard and do extended coding tests. But basically it comes down to the employer. Don't assume it's going to happen in all situations, but you probably want to be prepared depending on who you're actually considering working for and who the interview's with, to be prepared to at least answer. Now, some of the other things, or one other thing that I want to point out here is that it's not actually essential for you to pass a coding test. Now, this is something that a lot of people probably don't realize because, look, it's a highly stressful situation, let's face it. When you're in an interview process, it's really hard to think clearly. Probably your heart's racing a little bit. You're trying to remain calm and you're trying to figure out what the best answers are. A lot of the time, what an employer is looking for is just to find out more about your thought process leading to a solution. And in fact, some of the sneaky employees out there will give you a solution, or a challenge, I should say, a test that hasn't got an answer. So they're looking to see how you go about approaching solving the problem, and you'll get points for doing that even if you don't actually get to the stage of completing the test. So keep that in mind. Don't sort of look at a coding test if someone gives it to you and go blank and still say, I can't even do anything there. Have a stab at it. Go through the process, think logically, and even if you get some of it right, that might be enough, to get you over the line and to succeed. So coding tests aren't necessarily as scary as you might be thinking they are. They are in some cases. If you're going to work for Google or Microsoft or a company of that nature, probably they are scary and you'll really need to know your stuff. But in general, focus on, if you do happen to get a coding test, trying to go through and think about it logically and sort of demonstrate and talk the process through with the interviewer, I should say, and make sure that they can see that you're approaching it in a logical way, and that will certainly help. So in general, again, answering the question today, not all interviews have coding tests. Alrighty, so I hope that helped. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment and I'll get back to you. If you're ready to look at the next tip, click on up here and you can check that out. If you're interested in coding specific programming videos, click on the link in the bottom left hand corner. Consider subscribing by clicking on the link up here, and I'll see you soon.